guests. My name is Suchaya Mokhasen, and I am a Program Officer for Thailand at the UNODC, and I will be your moderator for today's event. Welcome everyone here, and welcome to all our viewers online to the launch event of the Unwaste Report Series publications, Turning the Tide, a look into the European Union to Southeast Asia waste trafficking wave, and legal frameworks to address waste trafficking in the ASEAN region. Thank you everyone for joining us today. As we are aware, waste trafficking is a pervasive issue, often camouflaged within legitimate transaction, posing a significant threat to both legal trade and the global transition to a circular economy. We are glad to have you here today as we are going to unpack together this groundbreaking report. That's also one second. All right, it's back. It's really groundbreaking, see? So that's also a first ever mapping of waste trafficking trends from Europe to Southeast Asia. This report is produced by the UN Office on Drugs and Crime, or UNODC, thank you, and the UN Environment Program, or UNEP. And this report sheds light on how criminal actors exploit loopholes and legitimate business structure to evade detection, making it a high-profile and low-risk crime. It also explores the negative impact that this crime has on the global circular economy. So before we start, I just want to tell you a little bit of this Unwaste series publications. So there are 4 reports. The first one is the one conducted by UNODC. It's dive into the movement of waste between the European Union and the ASEAN region, presenting emerging patterns and highlighting progress made by Southeast ASEAN countries in combating waste trafficking. And the second one, which is this one on my hands now, is the report, it's the second of the series, a review and gap analysis of legal frameworks conducted by the United Nations Environment Program. Today we're going to be focusing on these 2 reports, but the other 2 reports address cyber-enabled waste crime and the role of corruption in facilitating waste trafficking. So you will have the hard copy here, or you can also download it. We'll give the QR code later today. So before we start, I would like to briefly introduce the agenda of today. So we'll start with remarks delivered by representatives and speakers. You already see sitting here with us on the stage right now. And then we move to a briefing on major findings of the main report by our colleagues from UNODC and UNEP before ending with Q&A session. So for your information, we'll have people following the comments on Facebook live stream as well. So please feel free to type your questions at any time, and if time allows, they will be answered following the briefing on the report. So next, I would like to introduce you to our speakers and representatives sitting here with us on the stage now. In the center, we have Mr. Masood Karimipur. He's our regional representative of the UNODC for Southeast Asia and the Pacific. Next, we have Ms. Georgina Roy Rivera, Regional Coordinator, Environment Law and Governance, Asia and the Pacific Office, United Nations Environmental Program. Sitting with us here, we also have Ms. Sarah Rezali, Deputy Head of the European Union to Thailand. And we have 2 more speakers joining online. We have Mr. Ahmad Gunawan, Director of Hazardous and Non-Hazardous Waste Management of Directorate General of Solid Waste, Hazardous Waste and Hazardous Substance Management from Indonesia. And joining us online as well, we have Kun Priyaporn Suwarnaket, Director General of the Pollution Control Department of Thailand. So without further ado, I would now like to pass the floor to Mr. Masood for your remark, please. Thank you.
I hope I have better luck with my microphone than you did with yours. But these things happen, of course. Good afternoon. Many thanks to the Foreign Correspondents Club of Thailand for hosting us. And I'm very honored to be on this panel with such distinguished colleagues to talk about the illicit trafficking of waste and the recent trends that we have discovered, and to raise the alarm about the problem, and at the same time to offer solutions. And I think that it's very clear that this is not a problem that is unique to Southeast Asia, but certainly Southeast Asia is feeling the brunt of it, and we'll talk a little bit about that trend and why. But it also goes without saying that once trash is improperly disposed of, such as being dumped into the ocean, then it becomes everyone's problem. It becomes a global problem. It damages the environment, and it ends up in the food that you eat. But not today. That was not in the food you ate today. The urgency of addressing waste trafficking, of course, can't be overstated. It's a global challenge. And I think that the message that we hope, and I'm sure I speak for everyone here, that by the end of the day today, that we have raised awareness so that there is more international cooperation towards shared solutions for this shared problem. Speaking of trends, the reason Southeast Asia is experiencing a surge as being a destination for the illegal waste trade is one reason, anyway, is China's 2018 waste import ban, which, with all good intentions, was intended to stop illegal shipments and prevent pollution. The ripple effect from that ban of importing waste was the Southeast Asia being targeted by illicit traffickers of waste. And this, one might even say, made Southeast Asia the epicenter of waste trafficking. And I would also add that countries in the region are now starting to recognize it and are taking action to prevent this, as is countries in Europe, European Union countries specifically. And in fact, this initiative was funded by the European Union, and I think that it's incumbent on us to recognize that the European Union has been acting as a responsible good neighbor by both funding this initiative to learn more about it, to raise the alarm about it, but also they are stepping up their regulation and restriction on such illegal trade. So, to be clear, the source countries are not just in the European region, but also North America and also closer by in Asia. And we have seen the impact on the environment, on the health of people, on also the economic consequences. The fact is that legal, well-regulated waste trafficking is responsible, is necessary. It mitigates damage to the environment, but it also feeds into the circular economy. By that, of course, I mean we can reuse and recycle a lot of waste, and again, generate economic activity and mitigate damage to the environment. The problem isn't that. The problem is when such trafficking in waste is done by organized crime, by bribing public officials to turn a blind eye, by falsifying documents about what the waste is that's being trafficked, and by violating a whole host of laws and regulations in the dumping process. So we have seen, according to the European Commission, I'm going to give you a number that will hopefully put it into context for you, that the amount of revenue generated for organized crime in European Union region alone is 9.5 billion euros a year. And so it's a highly profitable, low risk criminal activity that is going under the radar. And one of the reasons why it's low risk is because in many countries, the regulation of waste trafficking does not fall under criminal laws, but under civil and administrative regulations, which means that even if you brazenly and openly and consistently on a massive scale violate those rules, the penalties are minimal. And so therefore, by the way, first you have to get caught before you can be given a minimal penalty. And so one of the challenges is to help countries strengthen their legal framework, pass stronger laws, impose harsher penalties, but then as well cooperate across borders and across regions internationally to harmonize their legal frameworks so that what is defined as waste in one country is also defined as waste in the recipient countries. And so therefore you close the gap in which criminals can try to move trash from one country and bring it to another and not be subject to accountability under those laws. So these are the problems. The solutions are also there. As I said, many countries are taking affirmative action to close those gaps, but not enough is being done in not enough countries. And as I said, there is disparity in the country-by-country legal frameworks. We are raising awareness, like today, and we are receiving attention, and I think the political will soon follow out of the momentum that we are building together here today. So I'd like to close by thanking the European Union for its funding that's made this initiative possible, and to thank UN Environmental Program for its partnership and the cooperation of many member states from whom you will hear today. And of course, civil society continues to be part of the solution. And so we look forward to our next step, which is to take the recommendations from this report and turn them into reality, and hopefully for better environment and stronger economies for all concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Masood, for setting the scene. Next, I would like to invite Ms. Georgina Lloyd, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon to everyone. Good afternoon to Masood Karimipour, to Mr. Ahmed Gunawan, who is joining us online, to Mr. Priyapon Swanaket, who is also joining us online, and to Sarah Razagli. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to be here on behalf of UNEP for this important launch event. The Unwaste project has indeed been groundbreaking, as you have stated, as it harnesses the mandate of UNEP as the leading global authority for the environment and the expertise of UNODC in criminal justice to effectively address the challenges posed by waste trafficking. This launch event brings together all of you here today and many others joining us online who are experts and key stakeholders working to deter and disrupt this illicit management and the illegal trade in waste, as well as, of course, experts across the ASEAN region and from the EU. We trust that these reports will support all of your work. The legal framework on waste trafficking in the ASEAN region, a gap analysis that is being launched today, is a landmark resource, as we must have solid legal frameworks and strong institutions to enable good environmental governance and to ensure a sustainable future for us all. Since 2012, UNEP has developed the concept of environmental rule of law at the normative level. UNEP supports member states through the Montevideo Environmental Law Program to advance environmental rule of law, to ensure legislative coherence that Masood referenced, and to support institutions through capacity building to implement and to enforce environmental laws, including, of course, pollution laws. This research that has been undertaken by UNODC and UNEP reinforces that effective legal frameworks and capable institutions are necessary components of environmental rule of law. Legal frameworks are most effective when they are clear, unambiguous, informed by science and data, when they are gender sensitive and appropriate to cultural and social contexts. Similarly, institutional capacity goes beyond education to include clear mandates, adequate financial resources, sufficient authority, and appropriate coordination across other institutions, across sectors, and across jurisdictional levels. In the recent Global Environmental Rule of Law report, which was launched in 2023, UNEP identified that there are 3 key factors in environmental rule of law. First, efficient and implementable legal frameworks. Second, capable and effective institutions. And third, governance across sectors at all levels. These factors, however, are also key challenges when addressing environmental crime, including waste trafficking. And through the Unwaste project, including through the launching of these reports, it helps unpack, understand, and support countries in the region to address waste trafficking through establishing these good trends, these practices in legislative and institutional reform, and to support, indeed, good environmental governance. I've been pleased to witness the really strong collaborative efforts between UNODC and UNEP that have led to the publication of Turning the Tide, the deep dive into the EU Southeast Asian waste trafficking wave, and the legal frameworks report on waste trafficking in the ASEAN region. I really want to extend my congratulations to the teams that have worked on these and the very significant commitment and work that has been put into them. I would also like to acknowledge the participation and contribution of government counterparts from Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam, especially and including during the regional, first regional meetings that were held in June of last year. As pioneers through this project, these countries are setting a good example for other countries in the region and indeed globally. And I look forward to continuing engagement and collaboration with government stakeholders in making these the recommendations in these reports a success in the future. I would also like to extend our thanks to the European Union for their ongoing support for this continued focus on environmental crime and understanding the need to address this for a healthy environment for us all. And finally, I extend my congratulations and sincere thanks to the team at UNODC and all the consultants, including, of course, consultants that have worked with UNEP and national experts for their hard work to reach this stage. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Georgina. Next, I would like to turn the floor to Ahmad Gunawan, who's connecting on live from Indonesia, please.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would say thank you very much for the opportunity to attend in this event, even by online. But I believe that it's not reduce the value of the important thing of this issue and also this event. And we already heard that two previous speakers before, so here I will make a note little bit regarding with this event that of course is very important and very useful to especially for Asian country. like I mentioned before, Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam. So, uh, good afternoon, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, speaker and also participant, for launch of the UNWIS report series publication, turning the tide, a look into the European Union to Southeast Asia waste trafficking risk. As we know that the cooperation for the importation of non-hazardous waste from EU countries to Southeast Asia, to Southeast Asian countries, especially Indonesia, already started around 2009. And since that, the Indonesia recycling industry within these countries is also growing. However, the importance of importing which is used as a raw material also cause many illegal import. The UNWIS project, which was initiated by UNODC, is one of the efforts to minimize the illegal import. The UNODC UNWIS project started in 2022 and aims to look at the flow, better understand the goal of cross-border waste movement, including national, regional, and international cooperation, which is very important in terms of waste trafficking, especially in Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam, and Thailand. Ladies and gentlemen, honorable guests, Indonesia also experienced the case of illegal import, and the last case of illegal import is during 2019. At that time, we inspected around 1,124 containers and has sent back around 423 containers sent back to the origin countries. Since that, the government of Indonesia imposed stricter regulation on non-hazardous waste import, including homogeneity requirement and proof of exporter registration, restricted waste and entry to 15 designated port. Subsequent amendment in 2020 refined technical rule for manufacturer, require importer to obtain import approval, and set a 2% impurities limit for plastic and also paper waste. And since that, we also improve our national regulation to have a better quality of the waste and prevent such of illegal import in the future. In 2022, around 1.1 million tons non-hazardous waste are being imported from EU countries. This is one of the biggest non-hazardous waste sources, namely plastic scrap, metal scrap, and paper scrap. Through this data, we are also aware that EU already published the new regulation on shipment of waste, which will be entry into force by the end of this year. We are sure that this regulation is an effort by the EU to ensure that exported waste will be processed in accordance with the environmental sound management. And as one of the destination of import, we will committed to process all the waste as ESM. In relation to the objective, UNWIS project is launching a series publication to look into different phases of waste trafficking. Turning the tide, a look into the European Union to Southeast Asia waste trafficking wave is a cornerstone publication in a series produced through the UNWIS project to take an in-depth look at the many phases of waste trafficking. Ladies and gentlemen, honorable guests, as we know that handling the illegal imported waste has required a fairly long process. So it's necessary to strengthen understanding between the relevant agency, including communicating and coordinating with the exporting country. To overcome of all the problem for illegal illegal waste trafficking. The cooperation must be developed between exporting and importing countries. And nevertheless, is better understanding the regulation of the exporting and importing countries. Finally, hopefully we can have a better understanding regarding the prevention of illegal traffic and provide the input and also develop standards related to preventing illegal transboundary movement. On behalf of my DG, Rusafi Pindarmonati. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ahmed. Next, we'll be presenting a video recording featuring remarks from Ms. Priyaporn Suwannagate. Please.
สวัสดีค่ะ Good afternoon, Mr. Masood Karim Pipor, Regional Representative, UNODC Regional Office for Southeast Asia and the Pacific. Distinguished delegates, Thailand is one of 4 countries in the ASEAN region participating in the UNODC or United Nations Office on Drugs and Crimes and Waste project in tracking waste trafficking to support a circular economy. We participate in the network of cooperation among countries in the ASEAN region in stopping illegal trade and movement of waste and supporting circular economy. Many countries in the ASEAN region have become destination countries for waste disposal of industrialized countries by importing it in the form of both legal and illegal waste trade, which is a crime under EU law. Thailand is not complacent about this problem. We have given importance of solving the problem of transboundary waste trade in the form of integration between voluntary agencies, both domestically and abroad. Progress in tracking this issue includes the following. Thailand ratified the Basel Convention, which has been effective since 1998. Pollution Control Department is the focal point responsible for coordinating with relevant agencies, both within the country and abroad, for the implementation of the provision of the convention. Department of Industrial Works is the competent authority responsible for the prior informed consent procedures by considering requests for permission to import, export, or transit hazardous waste. Thailand also has a Basel Convention subcommittee under the National Environment Board. The subcommittee serves as a mechanism and network for implementing the Basel Convention. For overall inspection of import goods, the Customs Department generally has a system for the initial inspection using an X-ray machine. And if any products are found to be considered prohibited products, such as electronic waste and municipal solid waste, there will be a coordination between relevant agencies, such as the Pollution Control Department and Department of Industrial Works, joining in the containers on site. If it is found to be an illegal importation, the Customs Department will prosecute the offender according to the law. Currently, Thailand is in the process of drafting the Act on the Management of Waste Electrical Appliances and Electronic Equipment. The WE Act is underpinned by the principle of extended producer responsibility, or EPR, where producers are responsible for taking back their products to be recycled or disposed of appropriately. The WE Act will reduce the administrative burden of the government sector as well as support the management of new types of waste resulting from technology change, supporting alternative energy such as ELV and electric vehicle batteries and solar panels. The draft WE Act states that producers, importers are responsible for properly collecting waste into the management system by jointly executing a producer responsibility organization or PRO and paying treatment and recycling fees to the PRO. The PRO will be responsible for the operation, alleviating the expensive hazardous waste management burden on the government sector. Today's launch of Unwaste Report series publication is considered an excellent event to publish important legal information of various countries, both in the ASEAN region and the European Union, that has been collected, studied, and analyzed. The report will provide a better understanding of illegal import, export of waste. This will be a guideline for operation to prevent and solve the problem of illegal waste trade in countries in the ASEAN region. Finally, I would like to thank UNODC for supporting the Unwaste project and choosing Thailand to be the part of this project in order to promote cooperation in the ASEAN region and European Union. We sincerely hope that operation under this project will help Thailand and countries in the ASEAN region achieve their goal of stopping illegal trade and movement of waste by supporting the creation of a circular economy. Thailand is ready to continue sharing knowledge and good practice for operation with strong cooperation from the public and private sector, both domestically and abroad. Thank you. ขอบคุณค่ะ
And the last person for the remark session, I would like to invite Ms. Sarah for a few words, please. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Mr. Masood Karimpour, Regional Representative of UNEDC, Ms. Georgina Lloyd, Regional Coordinator for Environmental Law of UNEP, and distinguished government officials from Thailand and from Indonesia who just shared their views with us online. Distinguished participants, I'm really happy and honored to be here in this very important presentation of the research that was finalized under the Unwaste project. This was really a timely action in which the EU joined hands with the United Nations, with the UNODC and UNEP, and worked together with the partner countries in the region to discuss possible solutions to the scourge of waste trafficking that is bringing such a negative impact as our colleagues were describing before. For the EU, combating the waste trafficking is a key part of our work, as we are striving to become climate neutral by 2050, and it's also an essential part of our circular economy action plan that we adopted already in 2020, and in this under this plan we commit not to export waste, our waste challenges to the third countries. So the action plan is also a key building block of the European Green Deal. The EU transition to a circular economy will reduce pressure on the national resources, and we hope it will also foster sustainable growth around the globe. We support measures at multilateral, regional, and bilateral level to combat environmental crime in the area of illegal exports, illicit trafficking, and also we commit to strengthen control of shipments of waste and to improve the sustainable management of waste. As part of this action plan, the European Commission proposed a regulation on waste shipments in November 2021, which was provisionally agreed upon by the Council and the Parliament in November 2023, and this is why this launch is very, very timely, will be adopted by the end of this month of April. So this revised regulation includes a ban on exporting waste to third countries, and particularly is banning shipments of hazardous waste to non-OECD countries. Exceptions are allowed only if countries are willing to receive the waste and they are capable of managing it in a sustainable way. So among other results, this regulation will facilitate recycling within the EU, and it will create economic opportunities for the recycling industry within the EU, which is really crucial to have a thriving circular economy. And at the same time, the EU will enhance combating illegal waste trade within the EU itself through capacity building, through development of tools, coordination among member states, and especially EU law enforcement agencies, because as colleagues said before, the legal framework is essential to this endeavor. So in this spirit, the EU decided to fund UNWaste, which is a 3-year project in partnership with UNODC and UNEP on fighting waste trafficking between the EU and partner countries in Southeast Asia, so mainly in Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Vietnam, promoting the transition towards a circular economy in these countries as well. The project contributes to intra-regional and inter-regional cooperation and dialogue on combating illegal movements of waste and supporting circular economy approach. So to achieve this overall objective, the project focused on better understanding waste flows between Europe and Southeast Asia, as well as the COVID-19 pandemic's impact on healthcare and hazardous waste movements. And this was done through the publications that colleagues were referring to and that we have here. So the first publication is called Turning the Tide, a look into European Union to Southeast Asia waste trafficking wave. This publication, as was said before, takes a look at the many aspects of waste trafficking, examining the movement of waste, legal and illegal, between European Union and the ASEAN region, uncovering patterns and highlighting the progress made by countries in Southeast Asia to tackle waste trafficking and facilitating legal trade. And the second report is the gap analysis on the legal frameworks. It's very, very important to ensure law enforcement. This was done by UNEP. Then we have a third report on cyber enabling of waste crime, and the fourth report on the role of corruption in facilitating waste trafficking, and it's also examining financial crimes such as money laundering. So each report includes a list of recommendations. These publications are very important to provide us with a transparent evidence of the waste trafficking flows between European Union and Southeast Asia, and also they're very informative and provide also some ideas to countries on how to equip themselves to ensure law enforcement. And these publications also zoom in on key enablers of illegal trafficking, such as cybercrime, corruption. So we have a more holistic understanding on how these crimes are interconnected to environmental crimes for a more accurate law enforcement. Partnership is really a key to stop trafficking between different regions and different countries. So we would like to commend the countries in Southeast Asia, our partner countries, Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam, for they are very friendly, they are very effective cooperation. We would like to thank once again our partners, UNODC and UNEP, for the very effective implementation of the activities, and we look forward to work even more. The EU looks forward to working with the Southeast Asian countries, with Thailand, Malaysia, Vietnam, Indonesia, with other partners, to more and more effectively curb the illegal waste trafficking, to facilitate law enforcement, and to promote a circular economy for a mutual benefit and for the benefit of our environment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sarah, and also thank you our speakers for the first round today, Mr. Masood, Georgina, Sarah, Ahmed, and also Kun Priyapon joining online. I think we should give them a round of applause. Thanks for setting the scenes and also highlighting some key messages already that we're going to dive deeper in the next session. So you may take a seat and relax now. Next, I would now like to invite our colleagues from UNODC and UNEP on the stage, please, as we're going to dive into the findings of the main report that we're talking about already. All right, thank you. I will just briefly introduce our colleagues. Sitting next to Kun Masood on his left hand is Ms. Joanna Kotusiu. She's our program coordinator of Project Unwaste at the UNODC Regional Office for Southeast Asia and the Pacific. Next to her, we have Kun Muan Dao Suandi. She's our National Program Officer of UNODC Unwaste Project. And Kun Masood, to his right hand, we have Mr. Rocky Guzman from UNEP, and next to him is Kun Sali Yang, Program Officer in the Law Division at the UNEP. I think everyone's ready to dive into the findings. I may now pass the floor to Joanna, please.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. It's really nice to see a lot of familiar faces, especially our counterparts from Thailand, and also see a lot of our collaborators joining online. So I think a lot have been said already. I want, maybe if you can go to the next slide, to acknowledge, in addition of what was said, of course, UNEP is one of our implementing partners. Another implementing partner for this work, for the research work, was UNITAR, and they are joining today online. Thanks for all your contribution, and also Guido Rendal, who contributed to our report on cyber-enabled waste crime, but also World Customs Organization, OLAF, the SWEP project for providing data for our report. In addition, of course, to extending my gratitude to governments of Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia, and Vietnam for sharing the data with us. And also, not lastly, 3 major European ports who share the data and their great work on how they tackle the waste trafficking at the origin. So we go to the next slide. I think you saw that diagram. We can move next slide, where we see waste trade versus illegal waste traffic. I think there are 2 different notions, and just to set the scene a little bit more, as Masood was mentioned, so there's all the cycle of production, consumption that generates waste, and then the waste is shipped. Sometimes it's processed in the countries of origin, but that sometimes it's shipped in different places around the world. And for legal waste trade, it's a very it's a healthy part of trade that actually feeds into circular economy, as allows the reuse of materials. But along the legal waste trade, we also see illegal waste flows, and unfortunately, it ends up in ocean illegal landfills, or it's burned in the open. So within the report, if you go to the next slide, we want to highlight main issues related to mostly to waste trafficking. So what we saw based on data shared, the waste trafficking from high-income countries to other countries persists as a significant phenomenon, and Southeast Asia is still targeted by waste traffickers, and sometimes the waste is intercepted at the countries of origin, but sometimes it's not. and Europe, North America, Asia are identified as places of origin. We also want to highlight the amazing efforts that were done in European Union countries in order to stop the waste of the origin, but also the great work that was done in the 4 countries in Southeast Asia in order to tackle this issue legislatively and also through enforcement. We see from a criminal perspective similar tactics observed, false declarations to prevent or go around notification, missing licenses or incorrect notification. Why this is important, I think it was highlighted because the waste trafficking has the potential to disrupt legal trade. As we saw the China ban, China put the ban in place, as Masood highlighted, because they had to handle too much unwanted waste, too much illegal waste. And as a consequence, they banned all waste imports, and that created a shockwave across the waste trade across the globe. Also, we are recommending in the report a lot of measures, and cooperation is really essential within countries, within regions, but also between regions, research, data, regulation enforcement, and capacity development. I'm going to go a little bit right now into the details of the report really quickly. I think the report contains a lot of data. I try to select some key facts. So in terms of methodology, we use open source data from UNEP. This is for legal flows and also literature review. We had the surveys that were done by UNITAR and shared with relevant government agencies from Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam by our amazing colleagues from the 4 countries. And also the surveys were shared with the port of Antwerp, Genoa, and Rotterdam in Belgium, Italy, and the Netherlands. We also gathered data from enforcement operations and projects. And not lastly, I think Georgina mentioned our regional meetings, but also we had multiple national consultations that are a very important source of information for this report. And these regional meetings involve stakeholders from Southeast Asia, from Europe, but also different international organizations, international experts. We can go to the next slide really quickly. So this is legal trade again, a global overview, and we see the big pie chart. This is the quantities. This is the metal waste. The second one, I don't know if you can see the second is paper in dark blue, and then we have aluminium in orange. We have and everyone is wondering where is plastic. So plastic is the purple, and then we have copper waste and scrap. So the plastic waste trade represents only 4% in terms of quantity of a global trade. However, it has one of the most negative impacts on the environment. So we look, because I know there is a lot of interest in plastic. After the China import ban in at the beginning of 2018, we saw a huge decrease in the waste trade. So that the trade almost half, actually, the imports of plastic. And there is the question that's not answered because not enough research is done. What happened with the rest of plastic? And there are cases documented of accidental fires in different countries of origin. Just wanted to show as part of the very important topic that's today very discussed. And our colleagues from UNEP, they are part of the International Negotiation Committee of actually they're leading the International Negotiation Committee for the Plastic Treaty, where a lot of work is done in order to tackle plastic pollution in general. Quickly looking at what happens in the illegal trade in ASEAN region, we saw on the left-hand side of the screen the trade. Again, we are looking at legal trade, legal flows in the ASEAN coming from the world, and we see an increase. We see the different countries. We see Vietnam in blue, Indonesia in green. We see Malaysia and Thailand in purple and Malaysia in orange. And on the other side of the screen, we see the main types of waste traded. And again, I think similar with the global trade, we see metal, paper playing a very important role, and then we see plastics in light purple, representing a little bit over 5% of the regional trade. And right now, a quick overview of what happened in the trade between Europe and Southeast Asia. We see on the left-hand side the overall what are the trends, and we see an increase since 2017 with a slight decrease in 2020. And then on the right-hand side, we see the types of waste that are traded, and we see in purple the paper waste being the most traded, followed by plastic, which is in blue, and then ferrous waste, which is in orange, aluminum and copper waste as the next waste streams. Also, the main importing countries from the European Union countries, so the main destination countries of waste from European Union, again, we are in the waste trade, in legal trade. We have Indonesia as the major receiver, followed by Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia. And the main exporters are Italy, Netherlands, France, Spain, Belgium, and Greece. And this is, in a nutshell, a little bit of overview of the legal trade. We have a lot more data information in the report, and we are going to look within this legal trade. As was mentioned, the illegal transactions are hidden within the legal ones, what happens on illegal waste traffic. So if you go to the next slide, we just having a big overview. First of all, on illegal waste traffic, the data is very hard to obtain, so we gather in this report all the data we found available, and the gaps in the data are linked to reporting, are linked to various reasons. And here we took the data from the Basel Convention national report, so the countries have to submit this report to the Basel Convention, and this shows the data for 2 years, 2018 to 2019, but less than 50% of countries reported, and most of the reports came from the European countries. So it's really hard, based on this information, to draw a portrait what actually happens on the waste trafficking scene across the world. However, there were over 1,000 illegal cases reported, but very few resulted in legal consequences, and there is very little information on imprisonment, and the fines reported were relatively quite modest. And when we look at the impacts the waste trafficking has on destination countries, I think it's very disproportionate. Moving to another enforcement operation that shows trends on illegal activity, we moved to Operation Demeter, that's led by World Customs Organization, the Regional Intelligence Center of World Customs Organization, Asia Pacific, and China Customs. And they're showing, here is the data from 2018. Until 2022, their data for some years are missing, but we see again, so the main types of waste that we see, the blue, it's metal waste, then we see plastic in orange. I think we see a little bit of difference comparing to what we see in the global legal trade, and we see textile and then other types of waste. And here we didn't present it, but when we look at data by year, there is a certain decrease in certain types of waste and increase in other types of waste. For example, e-waste seizures tripled in 2019 comparing to 2018. And e-waste accounted for the largest number of PCs out of all types of waste, in addition a very large quantity. If we're staying with Operation Demeter, we go one slide, I think we're too fast. Yes, here in the ASEAN region, and focusing on what's the dynamic between, what are the cases, the seizure cases for Operation Demeter in targeted to ASEAN countries. We see the total number of cases here at the top of the left graph. And in green, we see the proportions of cases originating from the European Union countries. And we see a kind of fluctuation with between 1/3 and 1/2 of cases being recorded. And the right-hand side, we see different types of ways that are trafficked in terms of quantity. Right now to the next slide, and I know we have a lot of graphs, a lot of information. This is Impulse Sweep project. It's a network of European enforcement authorities. There are many countries being part of the Impulse Sweep project. It's founded by European Commission and it's coordinating by European Network for Implementation of Enforcement Environmental Law, IMPAL. And we see a little bit of trends on seizures for the past years, and we see a decrease in the last year, 2021. In green, you have seizures of plastic, number of cases, and then we have other like metals. We have paper and cardboard, and in I think in turquoise we have the e-waste. So it gives us a little bit the trend following the global trade. We see after the China ban a lot of seizures happening in 2018, and then a decrease in 2020, 2021. But this is also due to different measures that are put in place at the port of origins, the countries of origin in the European Union, but also different measures that are put in place by countries in Southeast Asia as well. One last graph from coming from enforcement operation. Another really great initiative. This is led by OLAF, European Anti-Fraud Office, Operation Noxia. So OLAF last year they have an enforcement operation that lasted for 3 weeks between end of April and mid-May. And the operation targeted specifically waste leaving from Europe going for Asia, so this is not only Southeast Asia. And again, we see the different types of waste that were seized. That's quite important, quite interesting to see that, for example, we have a paper, plastic waste, again on dark blue. It's quite prominent. And then we see in orange electronic and electric equipment. And 2 of the countries of participating Analyze project ranked quite high in the seizures and participate, of course, in the operation. We are going now to move to next slide to see data from the European ports. We had the privilege to work very closely with a couple of European ports. 2 years, like in 2022, we went with the 16 delegates from Southeast Asia and a study tour in Brussels, Europe, and had the luck to visit the port of Genoa in Italy, and this is the image from that. And we also developed a collaboration with the port of Rotterdam and Antwerp, who very kindly shared the data with us. Rotterdam and Antwerp are the main European ports in terms of origin of waste shipment through the sea containers. I have here some tables and more information. So the information shows actually the efforts done on the European ports in order to tackle waste shipments. On the first graph, we have the port of Rotterdam from the Netherlands, and we see the very high number of waste inspections, very high detection of illegal cases related to waste, but also we see what they noticed in 2021, a decrease in number of cases. And we discussed with them, and they said it can be possibly because of the very because of the very strict measures in place, maybe they move to different ports. Some actors move to different ports. If you go to the next slide, from a port of Antwerp in Belgium, we got from the Port of Antwerp also the number of reports compiled and passed to the public prosecutor office, and since 2017 where there were 174 cases that were passed to the prosecution, and we are still, I think the data on what happened to this prosecution is still to be gathered. I think could be probably a next phase of a research project. And we see that percentage of illegal cases of total waste inspections being quite high, racing to 16.1% in 2021. And lastly, the port of Genoa in Italy. We have in the first columns, we have the inspections. And in the last column, we have the number of criminal cases related to waste. They are quite high. And these are the number of cases that were passed to the prosecution office as being criminal. So a lot of efforts has been put, we'll see, and you can see more details in the report. And I'm going to hand it over to my colleague now for the presentation on what happened in the 4 countries. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Ioana. Yes, so in this part, we will talk about first legal waste trade in the 4 focus country, and then we move into the illegal part of the waste trade. First off, we have Indonesia. So we have numbers based on the UNEP data that shows from 2017 to 2021. Indonesia imported 26.7 million tons of waste, which values over $8 billion US. The main types of waste imported are paper, ferrous waste and scrap, and also plastic waste at 1.5 million tons. On your left-hand side, you will see over the years from 2017 to 2021, which country exported most waste to Indonesia. As you can see, the top countries are the USA, Australia, United Kingdom, Italy, and Singapore. Meanwhile, the EU countries collectively exported 5.2 million tons of waste to Indonesia with total value of 1.1 billion US dollars. And now we move on to the illegal waste trafficking from 2017 to 2021. So far from the report and survey that we've gathered from the Indonesian authorities, we have 52 cases of illegal shipment that were reported, and at least 16 shipments were returned to the sender or the country of origin. And there's 1 case involving around 1,000 containers of waste that were destroyed. The major type of waste that were trafficked are plastic, medical waste, paper and metal, as well as hazardous waste. In terms of modus operandi that were used to traffic waste, there's a lot of missing license, permits, and also the lack of documentation and incorrect notifications, and also mixing a lot of household waste along with hazardous waste. In terms of origin countries, most of them are primarily from Asia, North America, Australia, New Zealand, and the European countries are accountable for 10% of reported cases. In terms of prosecuted cases in Indonesia, one of them are reflecting an imprisonment penalty of more than 7 years, and which has been the most severe punishment in Indonesia for cases of waste trafficking. You can find the case studies within their report. And next we have Malaysia for, in terms of legal waste trade, which we extract the information from UNEP. We could see that overall Malaysia imported over 16 million tons of waste, valuing more than 11.5 billion US dollars over the course of 5 years. The main types of waste that are imported are ferrous waste, paper waste, and plastic waste at 2.6 million tons. And on your left-hand side, you will see the graph of exporting countries by colors. Throughout the years, from 2017 to 2021. You see the yellow one is the United States, Japan, United Kingdom, Australia, and as well as Singapore that are the major waste exporter. But when it comes to illegal waste trafficking, according to the Malaysian authorities, there's over 873 containers of hazardous waste reported illegally shipped to Malaysia from 2015 to 2021. And the major type of waste that are trafficked are hazardous waste, plastic waste, metal scrap, paper, steel, aluminum, and as well as e-waste. In terms of modus operandi, there have been false declaration, no imports permits, or the lack of compliance with the required import regulations when importing into the countries. And most illegal imports happen during the sea routes. In terms of prosecuted cases, from 2017 to 2022, currently there are no reported cases of illegal traffic that are prosecuted during this time. But on your left-hand side, there's a comparison between the number of imported containers, and that's a blue one, and also the reported number of containers that are repatriated or sent back or disposed of. And as you can see, the peak is in 2019, where there's over 399 imported container, and only 95 were sent back or disposed of. And next up, we have Thailand. So in legal trades, we have total imports of 18.77 million tons of waste valued over 7.13 billion US dollars. The main type of waste includes paper waste, ferrous scrap, and plastic waste, about 1.15 million tons. And on your left-hand side, you will see the major exporters of waste over the course of years. You will see the colors signifies years. So the main exporters includes the United States, Japan, Australia, United Kingdom, as well as Italy. And however, when the EU countries are combined, they rank the second exporter of the waste into Thailand. And these are the numbers provided by Thai Customs. These are illegal waste traffic case. On your left-hand side, you will see the e-waste cases found by year and also types of offenses. So these are information from over the course of 10 years, from 2013 to 2023. Thai Customs registered 276 arrests of e-waste with two types of offenses. There's smuggling and tax evasion. Smuggling is the darker navy blue color, and the smuggling is the tax evasion is the lighter blue color, and the corresponding import value is over 21.25 million baht, or approximately 570,000 euros. And also on your right-hand side, you will see the plastic waste cases that were found by year and types of offenses. Thai Customs registers 240 arrests and the corresponding weight of over 9,000 tons of waste, and the value on the invoice is over 76 million baht, or approximately 2.05 million euros. And a bit more on illegal waste in Thailand. So types of waste that are mostly trafficked are plastic, e-waste, as well as household waste. And modus operandi that we use mainly from 2020 to 2022, the major type of form of offenses that were found are the fact that criminals, they smuggle household waste, which is prohibited from importing into the country, using false declaration as, for example, they're declared as paper waste, but in fact, inside the container are full of household waste that are included with paper, plastic, plastic scrap, and other types of waste. Origin countries that we found most illegal waste cases in Thailand are from Japan, U.S., Hong Kong, China, and Cambodia. In terms of prosecuted cases, usually some of the high-profile cases meets with administrative fine not exceeding 500,000 baht or around 14,000 US dollars were imposed on the exporting companies for false declaration. And next up is Vietnam. So in terms of legal waste, the country imports ferrous metal scrap, about 28 million tons, paper, around 13 million tons, and plastic, about 1.3 million tons. And on your left-hand side, you will see over the years which country that exported most waste. These are Japan, the US, Australia, Hong Kong, and the United Kingdom. And as you can see, the waste import increased over 50% between 2017 to 2020. In terms of illegal waste trafficking, Vietnam sees a lot of iron and steel, paper, plastic, and other type of waste. Most of them enter the country by falsification or alteration of documents. Sometimes they come into the country by without the required license or permit, or criminals conceal the shipment to evade customs inspections. Most of the origin countries are from North America, Australia, New Zealand, and Europe, as well as some Latin American country. In terms of prosecutions, Vietnam has 265 illegal waste shipment cases submitted for prosecutions, of which 44 are related to waste cases, which is accountable for about 17% of the total illegal waste shipment. There's also an issue of abandoned containers. In 2018, there's a backlog of over 10,000 illegal containers that are left in the country. And as of 2021, in December, there's a backlog of illegal waste container of about 2,800 containers. And I would like to hand back the microphone to my colleague, Joanna.
Yeah, sorry, I think we spoke a lot and we are very late. We almost, I think I just wanted to mention that according to a consultation with countries and regional, we heard about a lot of challenges and way forward raised by countries and by experts from both regions, and they relate to cooperation. It seems to be the cross-cutting issue, and they relate to enforcement data, implementation of Basel Convention, regulatory policy, legal challenges, capacity and expertise. And in our report, you'll see a lot of policy implication, best practice, and at the beginning of our event, Masood very nicely highlighted which are those. For the first one, our colleagues from UNEP, they are going to share more about it, and we are going to also, our policy implication, they include increasing efforts, enforcement cooperation national level, optimizing international cooperation, building expertise and capacity, but also improving data collection, harmonization and sharing. And right now, I'm going to hand it back to Chaya, who is going to introduce our next speakers. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, UNODC. Thank you for that. Was in a nutshell for the first report. I would now move right to the second one, the legal framework, by our colleagues from UNEP. Sally, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Is the mic working here? All right, good, thanks. After all that mind-boggling information data that you have heard from our colleagues from UNODC, I think my intervention here will be like a commercial break. So I'm going to leave all the technical description to Rocky here, who is an expert. I will just take a few minutes. I'm the program officer on behalf of UNEP that is working for the Unwaste project. So this moment is really a proud moment for me to see the team's work coming to fruition. Turning the tide and the legal framework on waste trafficking in the ASEAN region come at a critical time when there's a need to review the impact of waste trafficking on the environment, given the triple planetary crisis of pollution, climate change, and biodiversity loss. We have the full acknowledgement page in the legal review or the legal framework report. But I would like to thank the individual experts who were instrumental in the development of this report. We have Rocky Guzman here. So he's the lead consultant, and he will be the one presenting the overview of the legal framework, thank goodness. And with national research support by Chanukpon Sumanan Sretakul for Thailand, Kwong Chui for Malaysia, Dia Paramita for Indonesia, and Trang Chang Thi Hong for Vietnam. I totally massacred the name, so I apologize for that. But they are here either in person, I think one of them is here in person, and the others are joining online. So also, I would really like to thank Joanna and her amazing team at UNODC, who has done a fantastic job in supporting the initial research for us as well on the legal framework report, and also ensuring that this report is finalized, published, and launched today. Thank you. Today's launch is just the first steps, presenting the landscape of both the legal and the illegal waste trade, highlighting the issues. We are, as we speak, developing a comparative analysis of the 4 countries. We've been working on criminal and administrative remedies available to address waste trafficking so that these countries and other countries as well can benefit from each other's learning. We are also developing a feasibility study on existing and new tools and initiatives that are important to promote the development of joint database and real-time exchange relating to customs procedure. The legal waste trade can be a lifeline to our economy and also supposed to benefit our environment with the development of the circular economy. As such, we cannot view criminality of the illegal waste trade in isolation. This is why UNEP is also developing, together with UNODC, a paper on obstacles that waste trafficking poses to the development of circular economies under the Unwaste Project. This paper will provide insights into such obstacles and highlight some of the best practices in Europe and Asia. So please watch this space. Like I told you, it's a commercial break. So with that, I will hand the mic over to Rocky to expand on the legal frameworks on, within the ASEAN region on waste trafficking. Rocky, thank you.
Thank you very much, Sally, for giving me the privilege to speak, and also for the introduction, and thank you very much to the UNODC for giving that very comprehensive context on what's happening in the region in terms of illegal waste trade. First of all, good afternoon. My name is Rocky Guzman. I am the environmental law consultant for UNEP for this Unwaste project, and I'm incredibly honored to be presenting an overview and a brief insights on the findings that we have on this report entitled The Legal Framework to Address Waste Trafficking in the ASEAN Region, Review and Gap Analysis. So this has been a great labor of love between UNEP and UNODC, and very happy that we have launched this at this occasion. So as I've mentioned, this is led by the UNEP Law Division in particular, and in particular, this looks at the review and analysis of legal and governance frameworks across the 10 ASEAN member states. No? And in this study, we focus really on the law aspects, and specifically on the offenses, the violations, the crimes, and the penalties that could be addressed, whose gaps could be addressed later on in potential policy reform for consideration. Now, quickly, the methodology used here is a legal review, more of a desktop review, which we also had complemented by interviews and focus group discussions across the different ASEAN member states, but in particular the 4 focus states of Unwaste, which is Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam. This also culminated in regional meeting last year, in June last year, where we had validation of the data and the research that we have done among focal and competent authorities across ASEAN member states. Now, if you look at this report, the objectives really is to map, take a stock take of the current status of the legal frameworks across ASEAN member states, and by mapping the legal and regulatory frameworks. And these status would be evaluated then to the current desired outcome that we have derived from different publications, including from UNODC guidance on legislative frameworks for waste crime and waste trade, from Interpol publications as well, and other relevant publications. Now, once we have evaluated the current status against these desired outcomes, we have identified the gaps. And these gaps we have looked at to consider for the development of legal measures that would address the needs that have been identified in this mapping exercise, in this gap analysis. So that's basically the methodology and objectives. And for this report, it's sought to be a tool for governments and stakeholders to develop legislative frameworks to strengthen and enhance their laws and regulations. Firstly, to enhance the legislative frameworks to combat waste trafficking, but also in a practical sense, it would be good as a tool for those practitioners in the field, especially legislators as well as investigators. We have prosecutors here, we have competent authorities, as well as judges, to help them for policy reform or legal and judicial reform to enhance combating waste trade in the region. So next, please. So just quickly, you'll get the chance, hopefully, to read through the report. But for this overview, I'd just like to focus that there is a discussion on the international legal frameworks that have been the basis of many of the national legal regimes that are present across ASEAN member states. This really focuses on the transboundary movement of waste in violation of various laws and regulations that is criminal in nature. So this contemplates a trade, treatment, or disposal of waste in violation of both treaties and conventions, international law, as well as the national regulations and legislation across ASEAN member states. Now, it's important to note that whether the activity amounts to crime depends on laws within the national jurisdiction, but the MEAs help in defining what these criminal offenses are. Now, in this regard, it's important that these multilateral environmental agreements, the Basel Convention that have been repeatedly stated, would be transposed in national jurisdictions, translated to national laws, and this would govern the definitions and establishment of offenses and penalties, and the nature of proceedings as to illegal waste trade and waste trafficking. So in the international legal frameworks part of the report, you can see a more in-depth discussion on the Basel Convention, the Rotterdam Convention, the Stockholm Convention, and the Minamata Convention, looking at hazardous waste, POPs, persistent organic pollutants, mercury, as well as other pesticides, and how this could be transposed to national jurisdictions. We also look at the potential impacts or implications of the plastics treaty that is currently being developed and is sought to be up for adoption by next year. Now, in terms of the Basel Convention, it also looks at some of the developments thereon, including the Basel Ban Amendment and the status of countries in ratifying this amendment, which prohibits waste from a specific number of countries to other countries, as well as more recent amendments and developments in terms of the hazardous waste transboundary movement, specifically on plastics through the Plastics Waste Amendment, which became effective a few years ago, as well as the e-waste amendment or the electronic waste amendment, which will become effective in 2025 and will be subject of more policy reform and developments in regulations across ASEAN member states. So these broadly are the international legal frameworks that are being looked at in terms of looking specifically at combating waste crime across jurisdictions. But we don't really focus solely on these waste crime specific legal frameworks. We also look at those frameworks that are relevant to waste crime, which are facilitative in nature. And this includes the Convention Against the Transnational Organized Crime, or UNTOC, the Convention Against Corruption, or UNCAC, and in the region closer to home, the ASEAN Treaty on Mutual Legal Assistance in Criminal Matters, which could become one of the facilitative measures for international cooperation to combat and prosecute waste crime across countries in the region. So next, please. So just looking at the policy developments at the ASEAN region, because this publication really looks at the regional level, although we have discussions across specific ASEAN member states as well. Just quickly, I know it's been discussed that the inflow of waste from other countries to the ASEAN region, composed of hazardous waste, paper, plastics, and other kinds of waste, that this has led to a number of policy developments at the regional level through the body, through the ASEAN itself. So this includes an enumeration of the instruments that are relevant to the waste trade and combating waste trafficking, including firstly the ASEAN Joint Declaration on Hazardous Chemicals and Waste Management in 2017, which looks at having or establishing an environmentally sound management of waste of transboundary hazardous waste, as well as promoting international cooperation across ASEAN member states to combat this. This was further strengthened after 2018 with the China ban. This was further strengthened by an ASEAN foreign minister's statement on illegal transboundary movement of hazardous waste and other waste in Southeast Asia, which really looks at, again, sound waste management, but also emphasizes the need for international cooperation across ASEAN member states, but also working with the international community to combat the waste, the illegal traffic of waste in the region. Now, this has been complemented by other regional instruments as well, including those that relate to plastics, marine debris, such as the Bangkok Declaration on Combating Marine Debris in 2019, which was further complemented by a framework of action a few years later, and a regional action plan for combating marine debris, which provides activities and things that ASEAN member states should do to align with the goals of the declaration at the regional level. There's also the ASEAN Framework on Circular Economy that could complement to ensure that there's resource efficiency within the waste management system, including in the waste trade. Among all these, I'd just like to highlight that there also has been a body that has been constituted, which is the ASEAN Working Group for Chemicals and Waste, AWGCW, which could provide a platform for consultation among ASEAN member states to enhance regional cooperation and cooperation relevant to all the MEAs and to combating waste trade, illegal waste trade here in the region. So that's quickly what's happening at the ASEAN region. Next, please. So if you look at the report, there will be a lot of matrices, a lot of tables that would be hopefully good, a sort of good read for the readers to make it easier to digest. But here is just one example of the status of across ASEAN member states on the multilateral environmental agreements for waste trade, specifically on the Basel Convention, its attendant amendments, the ban amendment, the plastics amendment, e-waste amendment, as well as other conventions that I've mentioned earlier. So there are also other matrices there. You could see on the implementing legislation for these BRS conventions, as well as the Minamata Convention. And there are also matrices on the status of ratifications or being a party to different other agreements such as that are relevant to waste crime, such as the UNCAC or Convention Against Corruption, as well as the UNTOC or the UN Transnational Organized Crime Convention, and the ASEAN Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty, which all ASEAN member states have ratified. So you could look more closely in detail all the status of this in the report. Thank you, Sally. But I won't go too much in detail in this presentation. All right, next please. All right, for the regional overview, I've mentioned I won't go into detail into specific country circumstances because there are specific chapters for each country in this report that you could look at later on. But I would just like to emphasize that for each country discussion, there is a discussion of the main regulatory framework, which includes the relevant laws and regulations, as well as other related instruments for waste trade in the respective country. Then we also have a discussion of the main provisions of the law, and then tables for the crimes, the offenses, and the penalties in particular. We also have a discussion on institutional arrangements and other matters, for example, policy reforms that are impending that would have a significant impact on the waste trade and combating illegal waste crime in that respective country. So, but in a nutshell, if you look at the regional level, the takeaway really is that all ASEAN member states have ratified and have the enabling conditions for these measures to combat waste trade, including being parties to the BRS conventions, with some being parties to or ratifying the Basel Ban Amendment. All countries have also ratified the attendant or the related instruments that I've mentioned, which are facilitative for waste crime, including the UN Convention Against Corruption and Transnational Organized Crime, as well as the ASEAN Treaty on Mutual Legal Assistance. And they have also enacted, all of them have enacted laws and regulations to combat money laundering, which is a key part of the operations for that facilitates illegal waste trade in the region. Now, many ASEAN member states have also established anti-corruption agencies and passed national legislation against corruption and provided a framework for mutual legal assistance. All these provisions, all these legal bases for these could be read in the report itself. Now, focusing specifically on the penalties, the crimes, and the offenses, it's important to know that while the nature and the scope of waste crime laws vary across these different countries, most member states have indeed a legal framework in place. And the differences could be seen in the penalties. There are discussions on the fines and imprisonment, and a comparative table on the fines and imprisonment, thank you again, as well as other administrative sanctions for violations of these waste crime laws. It's important to note that the degree of criminal penalties for waste crime offenses differ, and the gaps here and the insights of the findings have been the source, have been the material for the gap analysis for the recommendations or the factors to consider for potential policy legal reform later on across national jurisdictions. So that quickly is the regional overview and the key takeaways for the report. I'm going to go next, please. Just on very broadly on some of the factors to consider in the policy reform in waste crime frameworks across ASEAN member states in their national jurisdictions. This can be divided into 4 pillars of potential national legal policy reform. The first one is on strengthening the waste crime framework itself. And first is for states to have or to establish a robust, overarching waste crime framework that would provide the attendant elements for waste crime itself as an offense. And this could also include having waste crime as a serious offense that would trigger the UNTOC provisions, which are quite much stronger. Then we also have the establishment of effective, proportionate, and dissuasive criminal penalties. These include not just imprisonment, but also non-custodial penalties such as fines, ancillary orders, community service orders, as such. And we also need to have comprehensive provisions on fraud, as has been mentioned by UN ODC. Fraud is the key facilitator of this illegal waste trade in the region, and this doesn't just include waste fraud in terms of customs documents, but also in tax documents, in immigration, in getting licenses and authorities from the competent agencies across the countries. There's a third one, which unfortunately is too, but it has to do with the interfaces, I think, between other provisions in the criminal justice system. And this includes having the proper liability for actors across the criminal chain, having proper liabilities for each actor, the exporter, the importer, other middlemen across the chain of the supply of plastic waste imported in the region. There's also an opportunity for reform and having liabilities for legal persons and not just natural persons, because as it is, there are a number of provisions specifically for natural persons, but for corporations, it's not as clear in some jurisdictions. So this might be something that we could look at for potential policy reform later on. And this also includes potential liabilities for attempt of the crime itself. So these are some potential policy areas that could be further developed based on this gap analysis, and could be factors to consider for ASEAN member states in the development of their national frameworks. Now the second one, please, next. The second one really looks at waste-specific frameworks. So again, this has been emphasized by the need to establish a stronger Basel implementation, the implementation at the national level of Basel Convention. And this would be to have comprehensive Basel Convention implementing regulations, and to enhance it if there are gaps that would be identified. This also includes specific types of waste, especially with the amendments of the Basel Convention with the plastics and electronic waste. It would be good to have, to consider for national jurisdictions, to have complete definitions of the conditions, the substance or objects of waste. And this also looks at types of specific types of waste, including electronic waste, as well as plastics. And with the development of these amendments of the Basel Convention, as I've mentioned, it would be important to update the regulations to align to these developments, and to have, for example, focused plastic waste regulations, and having the necessary technical guidance, the circulars, to guide the implementers of these regulations across different countries on how to combat these specific waste types which are under the Basel Convention. So that's the second pillar on strengthening waste-specific framework. And the next one, please. It really looks at strengthening institutions and enhance cooperation across nationally, across different agencies, but as well as in the region and with the international community as well. I think this is a recurring theme of all the reports. The first one is to have a coordinated approach and clear mandates for government agencies involved, boosting interagency cooperation, and perhaps establishing national security task forces that would look at combating waste trade itself, and having clear mandates for environmental agencies as well as customs agencies, so there are no overlaps in their operations. Then there's also potential for strengthening institutions and enforcement and prosecution, including having guidelines that would assist prosecutors and investigators specifically for waste crime, and even using technology to ensure traceability across the value chain for waste crime waste proceeds that are imported from other jurisdictions. And lastly, we have the opportunity to enhance international cooperation, and this includes harnessing what we have already, including the ASEAN Group on Chemicals and Waste, for instance, as well as harnessing the Basel Secretariat, and by reporting all the developments there. And we also have regional bodies here. And this also includes for investigators and prosecutors mutual legal assistance, and how this could be enhanced in working with other prosecutors and other investigators in different jurisdictions, specifically across ASEAN member states. So that's the third one. And the last recommendation in broad strokes really is to, next please, is to have the enabling framework, the enabling conditions for environmental governance in general in terms of waste management, and in effect combating waste trade. So this is really the potential, and to consider mainstreaming gender, environmental, and human rights. So gender includes having women participate in all public participation activities and the development of policies in terms of waste management. In terms of environmental governance, this is also included in the entirety of the waste management issues of each country. And this has effects especially in local communities which have been bearing the brunt of dumping of these illegal waste trades in some instances. So there are opportunities to enhance rights of these communities and the public, including having more access to information at any point of the value chain, as well as having mainstreaming public participation in the development of policies related to waste trade. And as to human rights, we also have the opportunity to develop or to include this in the development of due diligence standards in the industry to ensure that there is no environmental harm in the industry, and that would safeguard human rights across different actors in the waste chain. So those are the 4 key pillars, the main factors to consider for policy reform across ASEAN member states. And I'll possibly end with this last slide, please, that really emphasizes the need to strengthen the waste crime framework through enabling policy and legislation. And at the outset, I have identified here some potential issues that could be developed already and picked up on based on the report, including having effective penalties, provisions for liability of actors, and safeguards against fraud, having specific regulations for waste, for specific types of waste, including plastics and electronic waste, and having comprehensive frameworks for the implementation of the MEAs, or specifically the Basel Convention. Now, I hope this has been a useful overview of the report, and I hope it'll be a good read once you have the time to look over the report. But I want to emphasize that the next few years really would provide an opportunity for legal reform and policy coherence across ASEAN member states. I hope this would be helpful in that process to combat waste trafficking across the region. So thank you very much, and I'd be happy to take any questions later on.
Thank you, Rocky and Sally, and thanks all the speakers here for providing highlights on key findings, key takeaway, and also some recommendations already. I think next I would just move right on to the Q&A session. So I would now like to open the floor here. And for those who have questions, please use the microphone at the back of the room, already set up there. And once again, a reminder for those joining online, you can send in your question through the comment section on your viewing platform. So please. Yes, please.
Thank you very much. Dominic Fulder, Nikkei Asia. What's interesting, one of my takeaways is that we're dealing with criminals at the exporting side and the importing side. And from what you say, it seems that you've done a good job as far as the EU is concerned. One of your slides showed that the cases prosecuted in Indonesia from the EU were like 10% of the total inbound traffic. So you've made progress in the EU. What progress have you made from all the other countries that are pouring waste into Southeast Asia, Japan, Australia, etc.? And whilst you're thinking about that, since this seems to be a huge and rather insoluble problem, has any consideration been given to simply having a treaty and banning all trans-border export of plastic? So you just stop it and then you get your breath back and see what you can do that's more positive down the line. Thank you.
Are we taking more questions or one at a time?
Let's one at a time.
One at
okay?
a time?
Yeah.
Okay. So then, Iona, if you would take the first part of the question, and perhaps on the convention or universal convention, perhaps Rocky will take that.
Thanks a lot for your questions. Actually, regarding the prosecutions, there are cases. So Indonesia, I think it's not the number of prosecutions, number of the illegal cases they detected is 10% from Europe. So there actually a lot of work that has been done in Southeast Asian countries in order to address waste trafficking. There are a lot of, in the report we are presenting the different task force, bans, restrictions, and yeah, sorry.
Thank you. So it's not the question. The question is what it tells us about the volume, not the prosecutions, the volume of shipments into Southeast Asia. And it seems to indicate that the EU is only a very small part of the importing problem. So it's the scale of the problem coming from other places. I'm asking you about.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, sorry for misunderstanding your question. So unfortunately, there is no comprehensive data, so we can assess the real scale of of where is coming from where. The data that we have is very limited. Data shows, yes, for Indonesia 10%. For other countries, we don't have the breakdown to know exactly how much is coming from where. In addition of European region, there are also waste trafficked from other Asian countries, from North America, from Australia, New Zealand. The 4 countries indicated that. Also, I think at the European Union level, there is a lot of inter-European Union trade. I think 50% of what's detected within Europe, it's happening within Europe from different European regions. I don't know if that answers your question. So we don't have the data, the comprehensive data, but what we know that it is coming in this region. It is a major destination. Some of it is coming from Europe, but also from other regions of the world. Thank you.
And to be fair, one of the recommendations is to invest more time and resources in data and helping countries develop reliable data with which we can have a more complete picture, and based on that evidence, develop policies that can keep up with the scope of the problem. Rocky, would you take the convention issue?
Sure. Thank you, Masood, and thank you for that question. As to the potential of having instruments, either international instrument or possibly even regional instrument to have cooperation on banning cross-border waste trade, this is precisely the issues that are being tackled already by existing conventions that we have, the Basel Convention, the BRS conventions, which provide for the provisions that need to be developed and the classifications of waste. If there are any issues that might come up or arise that have to be addressed through international cooperation, then this would be subject of other amendments. So that this has precisely been the work that has been done in the plastics amendment and the e-waste amendment in amending some annexes as to the classifications of these specific types of waste. I'd also like to note there's a specific issue that may arise on plastics. I'm also sitting as part of the Global Plastics Treaty negotiation, and there's been a discussion on the trade of plastic waste as one of the control measures that are being discussed. And this includes having potential prior informed consent procedures as well, but that has to be negotiated further and operationalized later on to ensure that it doesn't overlap with the mandates of the Basel Convention, the BRS conventions, and other instruments that are already in place. So this looks at like the global instruments that could be developed, that could be considered for the combat waste trade. There are things already happening. There are already things also in place. In terms of the region, the ASEAN region to combat waste trade has been quite active in having all these instruments, declarations. In ASEAN, it's mostly starts with some declarations that would then lead to a framework action plan or regional plan of action that would put specific details on what countries should develop in terms of policy reform as well as regional cooperation. So this has been the way ASEAN looks at combating specific issues at the regional level. And there are, as I've mentioned, specific instruments already in place, and that could be developed later on once other issues arise that would warrant a regional approach.
Can we have the next question, please? Thanks.
Good afternoon. My name is Patty Moore. I'm an independent environmental lawyer, and I've had the pleasure of working both with UNEP and UNODC over the years. My question goes to the very last point on Rocky's last slide, and also to what Masood just said in his remark. And that is, what do both UNODC, UNEP, and Sarah appears to have left, so that the question would also have gone to the EU. What are the perspectives and the options for continuing this kind of collaborative work to build policy coherence, to do the kind of policy and legal reform that Rocky was talking about? I mean, are there possibilities for bringing in more than 4 of the ASEAN member states, for example, and bringing them in through both the negotiations for the Plastics Treaty, for example, through what's already going on with the ASEAN Working Group? So what do the agencies see as the next logical step to continue the impetus that this project, that the UNWASTE project has given everything? Thank you.
Thank you for that excellent question, very forward-looking. And so to borrow Sally's analogy that her intervention was something of a commercial break or a preview, this is the rolling end credits of the movie. And if this was a Marvel Comics universe, there'll be scenes planted in there about the future action heroes. And that's exactly what we need. We need action heroes. We need people who are willing to champion this issue for the protection of the environment and the economies. And so you're looking at some of those action heroes here on this panel, but we need the European Union and other partners of goodwill to become part of the solution. And I also mentioned civil society, and I think the private sector is a big part of that, to take responsibility. Corporate social responsibility should include what happens to your product after you've sold it. In the case of a famous fruit-related computer company, until recently, they built in obsolescence. After a few years, there was no right to repair your product, which means you had to throw it in the trash. And that promotes e-waste, which is itself, on its own, a tsunami that is coming. And so we need to work with the private sector and regulators to ensure that products are sustainable and that waste is properly reused or recycled, to close the gaps in the industrial consumption and production end, as well as closing the legal gaps that Rocky has referred to, close the international cooperation gaps, such as the harmonization of the definitions, as well as the sharing of data on the traffic routes and the parties, etc., so that when shipments arrive, the validity of the documentation is corroborated about what it contains. And also capacity building. Quite often, regulators are loath to seize a shipment, because once they seize it, it's their responsibility. What do you do with thousands of tons of waste that's very costly for you to dispose of yourself? And so we need that kind of planning as well, so that enforcement is stepped up, and enforcement with responsible disposition of the products is also built in. And then I'm going to ask our brain trust on my right and left to also have any additional comments on this topic.
Sure. Sally? Thank you.
Thanks. So this is precisely why the Unwaste project was conceived, I think. Yeah. We have 4 pioneers, and that's why we talk about them being the pioneering countries. We have 4 pioneering countries in the Unwaste project, which is basically setting the momentum in prioritizing this issue and showing the other countries and the region, right, what this can do. That's why you are so important. So with regards to regional momentum, Rocky has mentioned a little bit about what are the different bodies within the region that can help. Yes, you know, it's really about building political will, and as we know, building political will takes time, a lot of time. My background is in wildlife trafficking. I have not been in wildlife trafficking for 20 years, but I do know that, you know, to build that political will to prioritize wildlife trafficking took 20 years. And I won't bore you with the details, or that will be very interesting actually. And there's a lot that this waste momentum can learn from how it was done. It's not perfect, it's still a work in progress, but prioritizing wildlife trafficking issues in this region took 20 years to come to the stage where we are now. And so for waste trafficking, I think this is the launching pad, and Waste Project is the launching pad for all the other countries in this region to actually follow suit, and for the region to do so too. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further input to add? Good.
Is there any further questions? Please, could you please use the microphone? Thank you.
My name is Ashok Sadhwani. I teach international trade here in Bangkok and California. I was just wondering whether your team has made any effort or have approached countries of export to prohibit or to restrict and restrain such exports before it even leaves their shores. In the US, we have under the Department of Commerce, we've got the Bureau of Industry and Security, BIS, but they are more into protecting national security and not promoting the illegal or controlling the export of high-tech products. But they are not so much into that. I wonder whether you all have done anything like that within the EU, the US, Japan, etc., to choke it at the source. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your question. Regarding if you approach the country to prohibit and restrict waste shipments, I think there is an international convention that governs that Rocky mentioned, like this is the Basel Convention. Our role in this project is more to map the data, establish cooperation between countries, and as was mentioned here, cooperation is really key between importing and exporting countries in order to stop this unwanted illegal flows. Also, part of our recommendations, we are, I think Rocky mentioned, part of the legislative measure to strengthen legislation related to crime, related to waste crime specifically, and in order to deter waste trafficking for happening. And I don't know if you want to, Rocky, to jump in.
Thank you. While we still can take maybe one or two more questions from here, if any. We have some questions from online participations, really, and I think this one deserved our attention. Your conclusions are talking about the government's responsibility. So what is the next phase of the report to encourage the government to take action, like in the report recommendation? So maybe we'll start with the UNODC first. Masood or Yona?
Well, part of the magic of being the UN is that you get to convene governments to come together to find solutions to shared problems, and that's what this product is. It's a taste, if you will, of the much wider, larger body of organizations, regional, for example, ASEAN as an organization, and other regional entities also affected by waste trafficking can come together to find common ground and to develop policies and programs of action to both reduce the export, reduce the trafficking, and also to more tightly regulate its impact on the environment, which then, of course, links to other initiatives that the UN is leading by convening environmental protection programs. So, all of that to say that we're happy to host the party, but we can't force people to come to the party, and we certainly can't force them to enjoy themselves. But it's a start, and I think that this report is an invitation to open eyes and hopefully open minds, and to motivate parties into action. As Sally rightly said, we can't do this without government action, and government actions need to develop the political will to do it. And I think the more we can put a spotlight on this issue and how it massively affects economies and environment, the more governments can be motivated to act in protection of their people, and certainly in promoting their rightful role as part of the international solution. So we're keeping our fingers crossed, and we hope that the next time we convene such a meeting, we have much more progress to report. And as Iona said, as Sally said, as Rocky said, as has been said in the report itself. There's a lot more to this problem than meets the eye. We've just shown you the tip of the iceberg. And as the first questioner rightly asked, well, if Indonesia caught one, how many got away? Well, I can tell you from a different context, drug trafficking, when I say we, the international community seizes shipments of, for example, methamphetamines off the coast of Myanmar headed towards Malaysia and Indonesia. We know that for that one shipment that was seized, 10 got away and made it to their destination. Can we prove all 10 of them that it were 10, not 9 and 9/11? No. We're extrapolating, we're inferring, we are looking at different data points in different places and making logical and rational inferences. So yes, this is the tip of the iceberg, and we hope to expose more of the problem and to compel, that's not the right diplomatic word, to motivate more parties to get involved and find a solution.
Yes, Sally?
Yeah, I'll try to be quick here. So as I said, political will takes time to build, right? But if you do have the political will, you have a way. And this is where I have another commercial break here, because I just wanted to at least to me, and I'm biased, I admit, right? The law is the backbone of enforcement. And so with good laws, therefore you will ensure good governance. Of course, enforcement comes with a different set of its challenges. But the UNEP Law Division is the secretariat of what we call the Montevideo Environmental Law Program. And this is a program that is specifically created to support member states if they wish to reform their laws or if they wish to have capacity building activities and support. And the Montevideo program is the platform in which the member states can ask for assistance. It comprises of focal points, usually from the environmental division, ministry, but you can actually ask for help, so the help is there. So my question is, are there political wills? Thank you.
Thank you. Yona?
Yes, I think end of credits for real. I just wanted to thank, there are a lot of people in this room and online who are a part of the team who contributed to this report, and I'm not going to pronounce all the names of all the amazing Anway's team in Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam. We have thanks a lot, Chaya, for supporting us today. Also, Florian for graphic design, and me, our intern in Malaysia, and Laura for the amazing support, and our colleague Shumpu, who is in the back, who always makes sure that everything goes smoothly logistically. And not lastly, I think two of the consultants who work on the report are here in the room, Daniel and Tina. They're sitting a little bit in the back. So everyone who worked on this report contributed to the success of this project, and thank you so much. But thanks a lot for coming today.
Thank you, Joanna. And there's still some questions online, but I think that's all the questions that we have time for today. And I just like to close on a positive note here. And just a few things. The report, we have some hard copy, but we encourage you to scan the QR code or can download it from the UNODC regional website, or it will also be available later today through the global UNODC website as well. And once again, thank you very much, all the speakers, for highlighting key data on waste trafficking to Southeast Asia, and also legal framework to address these issues in this region. I think they did a very good job, and please a big round of applause for Yona, Nguyen Dao, Sally, Rocky, and Mr. Masood. And the very last bit, I would like to thank everyone who's watching us online. And on that note, wishing you a lovely day, rest of the day ahead. And thank you very much. ขอบคุณค่ะ